Welcome to the Scandinavian Mind podcast, our weekly show about the intersection of lifestyle and technology. Today on the program, a special report from the Women in Science Prize. This week, we visited the L'Oréal UNESCO for Women in Science Sweden Prize, an award organized with the support of the Young Academy of Sweden that aims to highlight promising women in the early stages of their research career. We spoke to three of the leading participating scientists, and let's say my colleague Johan Magnusson spoke to them. My name is Conrad Olsson, editor-in-chief and founder of Scandinavian Mind, and I'm here now with Johan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. And this week I'm also our new scientific reporter.
Yeah, I love it. And as people can hear, I'm a bit under the weather. I'm coming down with a cold here. So I'm going to let you kind of run the show. And I love this. It's a bit of a new format for us, trying to kind of be the reporters on the ground at interesting events that we attend. And you were it was the International Women's Day that this took place. Can you just describe the event for us, Johan?
Yeah, so it's as you mentioned, it's a cooperation between L'Oréal and UNESCO, and they are the initiators. And they arranged this across the world, and they've done so since 1998. And for the Swedish sort of edition, they're supported by the Young Academy of Sweden. And the reason is quite obvious. It's more difficult for women becoming a professor than men, and we still see a lot of inequality in the world of science, in the academical world.
And are there numbers around that?
Yeah, so I don't know specific numbers regarding whether how more difficult it is, but the event has supported like 4,100 alumni around the world, and 5 of them have later won the Nobel Prize. So if we just look at the Nobel Prize in, for instance, chemistry, we've had, I think it was 190 men and 8 women. So right. I think that says quite something. And the latest Nobel Prize from last year, we had 2 out of 20, I think, who were women.
I was going to say that these events are needed. And this issue needs to be highlighted.
Yeah, and the event also highlighted the importance of course, female role models, and that a lot of the inequality is due to old structures, which might be hard to change, difficult to change. But it also highlighted the fact that this is not something. It's not the women's fault. It's not the women who are the reason behind this inequality. So I think that was important to highlight. And also, we saw a panel talk on stage, and one of the participants, her name is Erika Johnson. She's a professor in Genus and Society. And she mentioned quite an interesting thing that for recruitment, it's also a lot of inequality. And if we look at when we're about to recruit a new team member or so, we tend to look at someone who's quite similar to ourselves, right? And her advice was to ask for 2 tips when searching in her network. And if you're looking for to hire a new team member, and you ask for 2 tips, then most likely you will end up with one who's similar to yourself, and one who might not be just like you. So I think that was quite a good advice.
All right, and speaking about the panel, you actually had a chance to interview one of the panelists after the event, Nina Wormbs, professor of history of technology at the Royal Institute of Technology. Okay, a lot of technology there. And here's what Nina had to say.
So tell us about your research.
So I'm an historian. I've been looking at changes in the media system historically, taking some interest in digitalization. It borders to AI and the way in which we have placed hopes and fears into technological change, information technology, digitalization, and now AI. But recently I've been more and more interested in the history of environment and climate change. And I'm now absorbed by research where I, together with a rhetorician, look at the thought structures of our legitimizations of not acting in the climate realm. So if you want to lead a sustainable life, you still might find yourself doing things that go against your information or even your intention. And when you do that, it's uncomfortable. So you need to find ways of rationalizing that. And we've analyzed those ways in which people rationalize and legitimize and argue.
And how have you done that?
We've done it through surveys. So this is qualitative work. We don't claim to be able to say anything about a nation or a particular group or a sex. We're interested in the spectrum of possible ways to argue, but we could still see that certain ways of arguing are more common than others. So we do this by analyzing the text that people wrote to us when we ask them.
And how long has the project been running, and have you seen any results yet, or come up with any conclusions?
We've had several projects actually, and the first one we've seen some really interesting results. It turns out that a very common way of arguing when you do something that you didn't intend to do is to have an economic budget or transactional thinking, right? So you argue that since I recycle and bike to work, I can fly, which is a comparison that sort of explodes as soon as you understand the size of these different things, right? But this is still a way that people can reason, because the currency is actually not emissions, but good and bad deeds. So that's a very tangible and revealing result. And our thinking is that when people realize these things, and when they spot their own reasoning and it falls apart, then that's a way towards a more sustainable discussion and towards a change in behavior, which we need if we're going to meet the Paris Agreement.
Yeah, will you also come up with potential solutions on how we as a society can sort of improve this situation or people's behavior, or will you only collect the survey results? And
well, I think we found in some of these arguments we found great potential for how to engage with people's knowledge. So we for example know a bit more what is helping change, right? We also looked at what people who stopped flying for climate reasons. We discovered that they had they displayed their answers showed that knowledge is in fact really important, but a particular kind of knowledge. And this goes against some of the research that keeps saying that knowledge doesn't help. Right. So here we can contribute to a different way of communicating climate change.
And do you know when we can take part of any results?
Oh, we've published several articles already.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And where are they available?
They're open access, all of them. And my colleague Maria Wollratz-Söderberg, she's all over the place talking about this. So some of it is reached media as well.
And now you get to talk about it as well.
Now I get to talk about it.
On stage and in the podcast, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was Nina Wormbs. Let's get into some of the prize winners here. You had a chance to speak to Beatriz Villarroel. Maybe I pronounced it wrong.
Villarroel, yeah.
Thank you so much. She was awarded the prize 2 years ago, and you had a chance to speak to her as well. Maybe you should describe the Beatriz a little bit more.
Yeah, and also not only did she win 2 years ago, but she also, of course, made it to the global final, where she last year was announced rising star. So quite a bright future for her. She's an astronomer. She works at Nordita here in Stockholm, and Nordita is an institute, and she leads a project, and it's called the VASCO project. And VASCO stands for Vanishing and Appearing Sources During a Century of Observations. So she's looking for astronomical objects that may have vanished from our sky, or other type of unusual things that you can find on the sky. And the aim, it's a global project, and the aim is to find things that nobody knew about, or signatures of extraterrestrial intelligence.
Good stuff. Let's get into it. Here's Beatriz Villarroel.
Tell us more, what do you do?
So Nordita stands for Nordic Institute for Theoretical Physics, and it's an institute held by Stockholm University and KTH.
Which is the Royal Institute of Technology.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm there. And but the VASCO project is very international, so we work with many scientists from 4 different continents. Australia is not included, simply by chance, because there is simply no collaborator from Australia right now at the moment, but I hope we will have some.
So it's a global cooperation.
Yeah, exactly. So we do our research, and now we have moved slightly into a new domain because things develop quite fast in science. Also, like when we do our research, and we're going to be moving into the area of searching for extraterrestrial intelligence closer to our Earth. We usually, most searches for extraterrestrial intelligence have been done with the radio telescopes. And then what people have been doing is that they search for radio signals from a different star. They look quite far away. And right now they have been looking for, effectively 300,000 objects have been surveyed, and one has found nothing. And then, but already in the 1960s, people knew, or Carl Sagan and others proposed that, okay, radio is one way of searching for life, but another way is to search for things that, let's say if you have an extraterrestrial exploratory spacecraft that comes to our solar system, or that ET would send some kind of artifacts, that is the second route to look for them. The thing is that it's extremely difficult to do it. Because you need usually some like billion-dollar space missions, so that's why people didn't do it so far. But now we have like new technology and new techniques, and I think we are in a mature point to do these searches in rather inexpensive ways.
Yeah, because it's also a matter of funding, of course.
Yes.
Is this controversial, this area within your type of science, or can you get funding?
It is controversial. It is very difficult to get funding. Our hope lies with philanthropists. So
and what are the hopes for the project? Are you optimistic?
I'm super optimistic. I wouldn't do that otherwise. I look at our humanity. Humans have managed to build Voyager 1 and Pioneer, and Voyager 1 left our solar system in 2012. It's more than 10 years ago when it left the solar system. So if it's going to be traveling towards another star, let's say it could actually reach it in less than 100,000 years as far as the closest star. I mean, it could reach a distance of the closest star in something like 77,000 years. And if we can do that, why wouldn't another civilization be able to send something to us? It's a very simple thing, and you have 40 billion of Earth-like planets just in our own Milky Way galaxy. So I'm going to say that there are all reasons to believe that this can pay off.
And if we're talking about life in space, what's the most likely sort of version of this life?
Well, it's most likely going to be primitive life, I'm going to guess. But it doesn't mean that there can't be plenty of intelligent civilizations out there.
And what would you, if you would count the odds, what would you say about the odds for life in space?
It's not possible to guess anything right now because we don't have the information to build the statistics. But I would say that since we already have found asteroids with 80 different types of amino acids, which are the basic building blocks of proteins, why wouldn't these? I mean, we even found basic building blocks of the DNA molecules. So I'm going to guess that the basic building blocks of life are everywhere.
All right, that was Beatriz Villarroel. I love it when we can get some space here on the podcast. We've been having not enough space talk on the podcast, perhaps. It's a kind of a guilty pleasure of mine, but so maybe I should restrain myself. But thank you so much for doing that interview. Now let's get on to the highlight of the event. This year's prize winner, You had a chance to speak to her. Very interesting person, working with data and AI. Kathlén Kohn. Can you describe Kathlén for us before we get into the interview?
Kathlén, she's originally from Germany, and she works a lot with 3D and AI, and how 3D and creating 3D models can help for sustainability, and also how her science can make AI more understandable.
Wonderful, exciting stuff. So here now, Kathlén Kohn from the Women in Science Prize in Stockholm the other day.
And tell us more about this research. What do you study?
So I am a mathematician, but I do work interdisciplinary with engineers, mostly computer vision engineers, on technology where you aim to reconstruct 3D models of an object from pictures.
And to be more specific, how do you do it?
How do I do it? Maybe let me actually try to answer a slightly different question that has something to do with how technology goes together with life, and why this is relevant. You might imagine that if you want to buy a new dress or a new suit, in like the future, you will be able to do this first in an augmented reality world by taking lots of pictures of you. You get a 3D model of you, and then you can try on the virtual dress. And you can see if this you like the design generally on you, or if you don't, and how the cloth looks and so on. And so this will help to lower production costs, for instance, and be a part of a sustainable life. But this is like, I know I've talked about the end product, which is typically what you see as a customer. But I am really on the far back end. I'm the mathematician who tries to understand the core of the problem, what is challenging about it, what is easy. So we're just not producing anything, we're just finding the theory that helps the engineers. And so I'm happy to receive this prize because very often we do not get this visibility, you know. You have all your smartphones and there's lots of math inside, but no one thinks about the mathematicians.
When I read about your research before, I also read about what you just described, like 3D also in fashion.
Right.
And the AR world that you mentioned. Super curious. Can you tell us more how it will work?
I mean,
and also the road there. How far away is it?
So I don't think that we are very far away from some technology, but it's always the question how good the technology is, like, and how satisfied, how smooth you will be as a customer. So I think until this is really like a smooth technology, which is available to everyone and is very, very good quality, it is going to take us still many years. I also want to point out it's not just like fashion specific. So as the mathematician, I'm thinking of the problem always as like the abstract problem that will solve many problems. So it doesn't have to be specifically 3D models of human bodies to put on clothes. It could also be we could use our smartphone and want to take a lot of pictures of this room we're sitting in to get a 3D model of the room and then change its furniture or change the tapestry and so on.
Yeah, because we already have the VR tools for architects to imagine a room or even design a room. Yeah.
Right.
And we will see similar initiatives, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this technology already exists to a large extent, but it has its boundaries. And my job as a mathematician is trying to understand what these boundaries are. Is this a technological problem and we just need to develop better technology? Or is this actually that part of the problem is so hard that no matter what technology we develop, we will exactly get to solve it, and then we need to find other creative workarounds.
And what do you think is the answer to that question?
I think a little bit of both. Yes, and so my job is to pinpoint what exactly it is, but we're not done.
And will you ever be? How long is the research project, this current one, or has it already finished? Or
So I think, I am hoping that what we are currently working on together with engineers is something that can be finished within a few amount of years, say up to 5, I hope. And then it would feel to me then I have done my job as a mathematician, and then the rest is up to the engineers in some sense. But the mathematical tools that I develop and the people that work in my group develop are not just for the specific purpose of 3D reconstruction. We also develop tools to maybe make artificial intelligence systems more explainable in general. And that, I think, is a very long-term project.
You also mentioned that on stage to make AI more explainable. Can you explain how to make it more explainable?
Right, I think the issue at the moment with artificial intelligence is that we do not have a very good theoretical understanding of it. So, but we are already using it in self-driving cars, or maybe banks even use it. Some banks use it to decide if a certain person should get a loan or not. But if you make these sort of decisions, not by humans anymore that follow a rule book, but you let an AI do the decision, then maybe you want to know why a certain decision was taken. And at the moment, we do not have that. And there's many researchers in the world that try to push for explainable artificial intelligence. And there's many approaches on how to get this done. And so what I think I can help with is trying to understand the theory of artificial intelligence systems. And if we really understand them, then we should also be able to understand why we took a certain course.
And you mentioned before, or also, on stage, that this is also, your research is also a matter of sustainability. Is that what you mentioned before, that it may reduce overproduction and such, or
Yeah, I think since I'm a mathematician, I am working just in the background on like whatever technology, and I mean sustainability can also mean reduction of transport costs. I mean, if we have self-driving cars, then we don't have, or other self-driving vehicles, doesn't even have to be cars. They can be more environmentally friendly, like maybe they don't have to carry humans, and I think it can be applied to many things. And I think it's very hard to foresee at the moment what artificial intelligence will be capable of. Even I cannot anticipate that, so.
And lastly, this research project, do you think it will end up going to market as a startup, or will it remain in the scientific world?
So I don't think that I will personally push this to become a startup, because it is not exactly my cup of tea. Like, I never really wanted to be like an entrepreneur, I think. I'm really the curious academic.
Perhaps your research colleagues.
Right, so I have a research colleague who is one of the most famous computer vision engineers in Europe that I'm working a lot with. He's in Prague at the Technical University, and lots of people in his group have started startups to get some parts of these products onto the market, either in parallel to their academic careers, or they would finish their PhD degree and then do that. So there is certainly possibility for that.
Yeah, because it's obviously huge potential for 3D solutions and
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, that was Kathlén Kohn, winner of this year's L'Oréal UNESCO for Women in Science Sweden Prize. Johan, thank you so much for being our man on the ground and reporting from this. I hope you all enjoyed these conversations. Okay, Johan, what was your kind of takeaway from this evening?
Yeah, so a lot of good energy, a lot of talent, of course. I felt quite stupid, to be frank, when I was in the room, because there was a lot of smart people there. And also, we had the 2 recipients. We interviewed Kathlén, and we also had another recipient. Her name is Audrey Campeau. She's originally from Canada. And what I found quite interesting was also that they both, because Kathlén is from Germany and Audrey, as mentioned, is from Canada. And during their speech, they both actually thanked Sweden for being such a good country to be in as a scientist, and also in terms of equality. Kathlén, for instance, she can combine, and also Audrey, they can combine living here with their family and their professional life in the academic world. So also a shout out to Sweden and how far we've come as a country, but also how it's so much still to work on.
Good stuff. Sweden as a test bed for scientists. I love it. Thank you, Johan. Thank you all for listening. This has been the Scandinavian Mind podcast. Don't forget to sign up to our newsletter. Visit scandinavianmind.com/newsletter. We are in the thick of it, working on our next print issue of Scandinavian Mind right now. There will be an announcement coming out with regards to the launch of that. It's going to be mid-end of April as it looks right now. Super excited about that. I can't wait. I just want to plug that. So don't forget to sign up to our newsletter or follow us on LinkedIn or Instagram or your preferred platform, and we'll let you know. Until next time, goodbye.